Hey gang, Royd Free Senior back. I've mentioned several times about that I've been doing HIIT training recently. With that in mind, I came across several interesting articles from a 1981 Muscle and Fitness, which are a little bit contradictory to each other. For example, there's an article called Intensity Training by Charles Fraser, where he's almost like kind of debunking the old original 3-day-a-week training program and how that was kind of not scientific, and that Weider came up with this new 6-day-a-week thing, which everybody was doing, and Schwarzenegger and friends did, really starting in the 60s, if not the 50s, and are still doing, and is pretty much the competitive bodybuilders, for the most part, way of doing things. But in the same magazine, we also have articles. We have Heavy Duty Training Advice, which was a column which ran it for a while, by, of course, Mike Mentzer. And you'll see throughout this magazine, Mentzer's doing ads for this, that, and the other, including a center spread for his own new high-intensity training. Now, at that time, I'll give you an example where Mike had a young man, and I'll show you on this video, write in and say that he was training basically the 6 days a week, doing several hours, if not 5 hours each day, and he wasn't getting any place. Probably wasn't taking anything either, and you can't possibly make gains, in my opinion, on that kind of a program unless you are considerably enhanced and or you are a genetic freak of nature, usually both. Anywho, so we had the intensity article by Fraser there, and we have Heavy Duty Training Advice by Mike, and I'll show you what the gentleman said and what Mike's answer to it was. And then we have an article by Mike called It's War, where he talks about, kind of disparagingly, honestly, about that he thought it was kind of a joke when he used to read the Weider magazines, and they're talking about bombing and blitzing and all this warlike, hyperbolic kind of stuff. But Mike basically pays homage to Joe. And in fact, he mentions a couple of what he calls Weider principles, which are the pre-exhaustion and negative reps principles, which those two principles are big keys in Mike's heavy duty program. But, everything's a Weider principle. That's one thing I really liked about Weider in general. And then in the same magazine, we also have an article about the Barbarians. The Barbarians, They Do the Impossible by Rick Wayne. And we all remember the Barbarians back in the 80s. Identical twins, huge guys, throwing huge weights around. And they were obviously very well enhanced. And funnily, they had this concept, and I think they stated more than once, there's no such thing as overtraining. Well, obviously that goes against the whole Mike Mentzer idea. But I think this is where Mike, this time frame is where Mike started to have differences of opinion, and not liking the whole professional bodybuilding scene at the time. Felt like there was politics going on. He should have won that one Olympia, which I believe was in 81, incidentally. And he had a fallout with Arnold Schwarzenegger, etc. My take, I like HIIT training in that, and if you see when he gives his answer to this gentleman about the overtraining that he was doing, he basically tells him to cut back and just do a less number of exercises and cut it down to 3. Take a week off, which was always his advice for new people to hit, and then do 3 days a week, limited number of exercises, couple sets of each exercise, and the last set of any exercise you take to failure. So that was really the roots of the high intensity training. And it's really not crazy. And it's been said, everybody talks about high intensity training in everything, in powerlifting, in bodybuilding, and you name it. And it's also been said you can either train intensely or you can train long. You can't do both. Well, that's where the Barbarians, begged to differ and said, and did both. But I don't think that's the most productive way to train. Now, they were obviously genetically gifted, and again, they were well enhanced. And I think really in order to make good gains on the system that Arnie and friends were using and modern bodybuilders are using, you have to be both genetically gifted and on all kinds of PEDs. I think that the HIIT idea works better for naturals. Now, we know that Mike wasn't natural, which he was kind of reluctant to admit at first, but later he did. And then we have guys, there's a lot of guys like Dorian Yates, multi-time Mr. Olympia, and he learned from Mike. Now, he didn't follow Mike's routine to the letter, but was strongly influenced by it and did relative to everybody else in the Olympia, did a lot less volume. And again, I think high intensity. Now, if you're one of those people that can handle high intensity at a relatively high volume, God bless you and more power to you. My experience is that I've kind of been forced to train less often because, and I'm in the gym, with these workouts for less than an hour, including warm-ups, and just smashed afterwards and sore for days. And the key with any program is progressive resistance. If you're adding reps or you're adding weight on pretty much every workout, that's the ticket. And has been the case for me. So I think it's good. One thing is, I think a lot of the HIIT people out there, adherents, just pick one of Mentzer's high intensity programs, because there were several over the years, and decide you have to follow it by the letter, every exercise, et cetera, et cetera. I don't do that. And I've never done that with any program. I take the principles and kind of adjust them to my own needs. For example, I'm still a competitive deadlifter. Although there was a long break in between. My first deadlift competition I did back in June was the first in 11 years. Various reasons, but anyway. So I'm still consider myself a competitive powerlifter. So when it comes to the deadlift, I'm not doing the super slow negatives and all that stuff because I don't have to reach a high level of intensity. You do 400 pounds plus for reps. It's intense enough, and I'm getting sore enough from doing that I don't have to do the super slow negatives and all that. But anyway, I thought it was interesting in this magazine and how, and a lot of these muscle magazines, it's not just Weider, but there's conflicting information. And if you try to get all of your training information from these magazines, you could seriously end up confused. So I think it's better, to just take everything with a grain of salt. Try things out for yourself, see how they work. If things work, keep them in the system. If they don't, get rid of them. And I've always been somewhat of an instinctive trainer. So with all that said, I'm going to sign out, and thanks for watching. Please consider subscribing, and see you soon.